Hello, everybody. I'm Attasio. I'm a sidereal astrologer, and today I will make a description of the 12 ascendants, the 12 rising signs, and how the year 2019 will look like for them. I've chosen logically to describe us through the rising sign, the ascendant, because the rising sign is about us and about the first house in astrology, which describes best each one's personality and what is happening to each one of us in terms of events. I am using the fixed sidereal Babylonian zodiac, and my analysis will be based on the first visibility, the first lunar crescent, which will be seen before the sun enters the point of the vernal equinox. I'm explaining this in other videos, but this is basically the astronomical New Year. This is the Akitu festival celebrated in ancient Sumer and Babylon. So this way, we will be describing the whole year to come. When you look at the first lunar crescent, which rises on the western horizon after the sun sets, before the sun enters the point of the vernal equinox, this is describing the complete cycle. And the beginning of every cycle describes the whole cycle to come. So, based on this date, which happens to be for our year and for our year on the 8th of March 2019, based on this momentary picture, I will be making brief description analysis of the months which will follow up this date. Now, just a small disclaimer maybe to make. This is not analysis of anyone's solar year, or this cannot be by any means detailed analysis, because very important is also the rising degree of the ascendant, in which term the ascendant is, in which decade. So all these details are very private, and this is just a very basic prediction based on the rising sign, on the ascendant. So I will be starting with Aries, and I will give word for every single sign, and I will share with you my screen so that you can follow up my words. For the overview of the basic and most important events of 2019, you can see my other video, which is also related to predicting briefly what will follow up in the 2019. So look, this is Aries Rising, Aries Ascendant, for Moon appearing on the 1st of Nisan 2019 in Pisces, while the sun is still in Aquarius. And this is the first lunar crescent. This is the most important day of the year, the holy day of the year, where we can pray, where all our wishes will come true, where we will do good if we look at the first lunar crescent appearing on the evening of the 8th of March 2019. So this is the first lunar crescent. For Aries ascendant, it is appearing also typically for our era, it is appearing in their 12th house. And this way, the 12th house is emphasized. All secret matters, all esoterics, all hidden secretive knowledges, everything which is related to isolation is being emphasized. Mars is rising on the ascendant, on his own place in Aries, and this is very good in terms of energy, in terms of ambition, in terms of aiming at new projects or work. And all this is because Mars will be in his own Martian term in Aries and is aspected by Venus. This can create some emotional lessons or some emotional issues in the love life. This, but on the other hand, Venus is aspecting well Mars. The Sun is in the 11th house for having ambition and desire for social contacts, for having new plans. Venus is very well placed in terms of career, so this is blessing. But Venus is also in Capricorn, where she is a bit limited, where she is not exactly as romantic as we can expect from Venus to be. On the same time, at the moment of the first lunar visibility on the 1st of Nisan, Mercury is becoming invisible. This can mean that there will be something to be completed in terms of esoterics, in terms of karmic debts with someone in the family. There is something that the natives with rising sign Aries will need to do. But in any case, the 9th house with Saturn, with Pluto, is showing very good level of spirituality. They will have interest towards spiritual deep knowledge and psychological, philosophical studies. Venus will be blessing the ascendant and the work. So this will be quite ambitious, athletic if you want, and good year in terms of energy. The lessons may come a bit on deep emotional level in relation to the private personal life. Uranus on the ascendant is already taking care of some personal changes, and this is already active since 2017 April. Depending on in which degree the ascendant is passing, the line of the ascendant is passing the rising sign, we can see the timing of important personal event that will happen in relation to the transit of such important and slow planets as Uranus. Basically, this is the most important for Aries, and we cannot say much more because we don't know the rising degree, we don't know any other important details which can be visible only in the personal chart. But basically, this will be a very good year for ambition, for new projects, for new social contacts. The invisibility of Mercury is a sign that something in the 12th house with the moon, that something needs to be completed, important karmic debt. I am continuing with the next zodiacal ascendant, and this is Taurus. Just a second. For rising sign Taurus, a very important emphasized rising sign because of the royal star Aldebaran in the 15th degree Taurus and Antares in the 15th degree Scorpio. So this is a zodiacal sign of high importance. And for Taurus rising, the moon, the first lunar crescent for the year 2019, will be seen in the 12 degrees Pisces on the 11th house, of course, again with the Mercury, which is completing his visibility and is about to become invisible. So this way, there is an emphasis on the 11th house, on the money, on the gains, on the friendships, on the social circle around us. So this is very important for Taurus, and this particular disappearance of Mercury is pointing at some sort of completion there, important project that they may be completing this year. Venus is trining the ascendant very well from the 9th house in Capricorn, again, not very romantic, and squaring Mars in the 12th house. This can certainly create some emotional issues and some lessons related to the private relationships, especially because Mars is ruling the 7th house of the relationships. Saturn is in the 8th house. When Saturn is in the 8th house, it can do, again, with some secretive matters, with some esoteric sciences, hidden knowledge. It is also the money of our partners, which can be, for one one particular period in some challenged. Jupiter on the descendant is very good sign for Taurus ascendant, because Jupiter on the descendant will support the relationship, will give good blessing also to the ascendant, to the native. And Jupiter is also aspecting the 10th house of the career. So in terms of career, they will have quite good time, because the sun on the 10th is always an indication of some good promising period and career time. Of course, this is a reading related to the basic events. Every single chart is having the details. The aspect of Venus, as we said, is quite positive in terms of in blessing to the ascendant, because this is a trine aspect, and can be also good for new studies, far distance travels, which may take place in the year, and also for new spiritual knowledge. I'm continuing with the next zodiacal rising sign. Gemini, the 5th degree Gemini, is the place where the summer solstice takes place. And with this, Gemini is a very important sign for our era. Gemini and Sagittarius axis is the axis which will go through some lessons in relation to the eclipses which will take place in January, later on in June, and also in December. All 3 eclipses will be influencing and afflicting the axis of Gemini Sagittarius. This can lead to spiritual transformation. This can create also a moment of lack of luck. This could mean that during this particular year, it's not really very appropriate to plan very significant new beginnings, like maybe starting a new business, because there will be consequent eclipses which will be afflicting this particular axis, and also the limiting factor of Saturn and Pluto, later on Ketu in Sagittarius, will also create some sort of obstacles, or we'll just say that we need to postpone, that we need to be patient, and we need to postpone our creative idea for a better period at least until 2020, January, until Saturn moves to Capricorn. Very important is the appearance of the first lunar crescent, which is on the 1st of Nisan, 8th of March 2019, which is happening on the 10th house. By this, the 10th house is emphasized the career and the work. So with this, we can know that it's better to keep and maintain the status quo instead of starting new important beginnings. If you really need to, it's better to find auspicious, appropriate time for this, which can be, of course, calculated astrologically. And for this, you may contact me separately. The Sun is in the 9th house, is in the most spiritual place, in the waters of the Aquarius. And this is wonderful in terms of, this is blessing, in terms of spirituality, in terms of teachings, new knowledge, and so on. Venus in the 8th is about the money of the partner. It's fine. But Venus, as we said, is Capricorn. It's not so romantic. And we may not expect some new emotions, some new beginnings in terms of relationships and emotions with this placement of Venus, which is aspecting Mars. Mars is powerful in the 11th house, and this is promising in terms of new connections, in terms of having ambition to make money and create opportunities to make money and new contacts. Yes, so this is basically it for Gemini. Cancer rising sign, Cancer ascendant. Cancer who is being a bit afflicted in January 2019 by one of the eclipses. So also quite some time in August 2018, there was quite powerful eclipse. So it's good until the mid of the year that we really be careful not to take risky initiatives, not to involve ourselves in risky events, and also be careful in what kinds of new initiatives you undertake, considering that these eclipses are influencing us for quite some time. But I believe that after mid 2019, there will be new opportunities. Mars is squaring the ascendant, and this is saying that we may have some challenges in terms of career, but on the other hand, Mars is so powerful that we'll have the right approach and ambition and motivation to follow our career path. Venus is supporting Mars from ourselves, and is by the square of Venus to Mars, this is quite supportive, quite good and supportive factor in terms of our career, even though we may have some desire to change and some possible changes and some possible challenges in the career place. The first lunar crescent of the 1st of Nisan appears in the 9th house together with Mercury in Pisces. Beautiful spiritual position for new spiritual awareness, new spiritual learning. This can be related to a lot of new far distance travels and teachings. So this, and the moon is ruling the ascendant, and this is beautiful in terms of support to the ascendant. The sun is again blessed in the waters of the Aquarius, and this placement of the sun is also promising that the natives with Cancer Rising will be very much into esoterics. We'll be having maybe very powerful intuition and powerful intuitive dreams as well. Jupiter is on the 5th house. This is very good placement, not only in terms of children, but will support them in terms of good luck, and will create winning opportunities. Okay. Leo Rising, Leo Ascendant. Leo is also very important sign because of one of the 4 royal stars, Regulus, in the heart of the lion. So this way, this is one of the signs which is very cardinal, which is emphasized on. So Leo Rising, at the time of the first lunar crescent of the 1st of Nisan, the moon together with Mercury is in the 8th house. You know that the 8th house is very much about transformation, death, and eternal living, about the money of the other people. So depending on how this placement of Jupiter is in the natal chart, we can judge more. But basically the natives will have to deal with this, with transformation, especially when Mercury is finalizing his heliacal living by disappearing together with the appearance of the first lunar crescent. This way, Mercury is receiving emphasis. So we may need to complete some projects, or we may to complete friendships and have new friendships. We may to complete some important plans and ideas. So all this will be happening due to this particular important phase of Mercury. Mars is very supportive, and Mars is on the 9th house in his own place, in his own term. So this is beautiful, and Mars will be very supporting, and it will give energy and impetus and motivation for studies, for plans, for travel, for doing a lot, for new esoteric knowledges and studies. So this placement of Mars is very good also in terms of the incomes. Venus is in the 6th house. I see this as a very good placement, but it's not very supportive in terms of the private life, in terms of the relationships. Saturn in the 5th will not create issues around children, because the 5th house is the house of the good luck, of the house of the good fortune. So I have the hopes that when Saturn is on the 5th in Sagittarius, together with Pluto, his sharp influences are a little bit softened. However, this will be limiting factor in terms of relationships, in terms of love life. Saturn will be trining Mars, and this will make the Leo rising people very practical and very good in terms of ideas, work motivation. So this will be very important for them. And as we said, the appearance of the first lunar crescent in Pisces for our era, happening in their 8th house, will be supporting their intuition, their esoteric searchings. And let's not forget that all most important astrological stars are in Leo. So these people will have the opportunities to get deeper into esoteric searching, studies, and astrology. Okay, let's continue with Virgo. Virgo. Now, for this particular rising sign, for our era, on the 1st of Nisan, the first lunar crescent is appearing in Pisces. And this is creating changing environment in terms of contracts, in terms of all kinds of private personal relationships. That is why oftentimes people who have Virgo ascendant are experiencing challenges in their love lives, in their partnerships, in general. The sun rises on the 6th house in Aquarius, and this makes the 6th house, that when the 6th house is related to their work environment, this makes the 6th house being very important in terms of their work environment. This will give them energy and opportunities at work. But this is basically very typical also for our era when the first lunar crescent is appearing in Pisces. So the sun is in Aquarius, a very esoteric place. This can create opportunities for them in jobs also related to esoterics, but also jobs related to knowledge-based studies like new technologies. Venus in the 5th is good for their children, love life, studies, those that don't desire diploma. But Venus in the 5th in Aquarius, in Capricorn, is a little bit limited because you know that Capricorn loves Venus, but it's not so romantic. So this can be good for their love relationship, but cannot be really very promising if we expect really new, fiery, romantic emotions, because Venus is a bit limited on this particular placement. Mercury, together with the moon, we said, is creating challenges a little bit in terms of relationships, but also Mercury is about to show some sort of completion of important contract or some relationship. So Mercury is about to point at completing job project or completing career. So this may be happening in the 2019 for them. Saturn is on the 4th, and this particular axis of Sagittarius and Gemini, the axis which will be a bit afflicted by the eclipses, can create some challenges and issues in their career. But in any case, I am certain that Virgo Rising are spiritual, very knowledge-based, very smart, and certainly they will manage to go through this with spirituality in the right level, vibrational level. So Libra Rising. Libra Ascendant, for Libra Ascendant, the first lunar crescent is appearing on the 6th house together with Mercury, which can say important completion of some tasks in relation to the work, in relation to the subordinates or people which are under their position at work. Can be also related to completing spiritual studies or travel or teachings also, because Mercury is ruling their 9th house. The position of the ascendant ruler is on the fourth house, beautifully supporting their home, supporting their their descendant and also ascendant. Mars is on the seventh house in own place, so I don't see this as a bad thing, but it can create some lessons, some challenging situations in the partnership. But the Venus support will soften this a lot. Of course, we do not know and the exact. We need to know the exact rising degree and term of each one in order to be able to make very specific analysis. But Jupiter in the second will be supportive in terms of money. Saturn in the third will be very supportive in terms of digging into ancient, esoteric, spiritual studies. He may not be very supportive, though, in terms of travel, in terms of negotiation. Seems that this year will not be very productive in terms of negotiations, but will be very fine in terms of home, work, career. The partnerships may go under some small lesson. Scorpio Rising, on the day of the vernal equinox, Jupiter is on the still in Scorpio, and this is very supportive. This gives energy and blessing to people who have Scorpio Rising, Scorpio Ascendant. The moon appears on their fifth house, on the 1st of Nisan, on the fifth house together with Mercury. And this is beautiful because the fifth house is the house of the good fortune, the house which brings good luck. So this is the house which gives children, and Scorpio is also a sign which is generous in terms of children. Mercury, ruling their 11th and ruling their 8th, will show some completion in terms of money, in terms of plans, in terms of friendships. Mars is in the 6th, and its ascendant ruler is good to be quite responsible for their health. Venus will be supportive in terms of health, but still it's good that people with Scorpio rising are responsible for their own health. Now, Scorpio is a sign as important as Taurus and Leo and Aquarius is, because there we have also the royal star Antares. Saturn in the second house together with Pluto, and Saturn is ruling the third house of spirituality, the fourth house of the home, may be a reason for some additional efforts and sincerity and high moral values implication in terms of the way these people will earn their money. But for the rest, Venus will be a very beautiful supportive factor that will be sextiling the moon and will be trining the descendant, so their relationships will be okay. Sagittarius ascendant, quite similarly like Gemini ascendant, there will be in January, also in June, and also in December eclipses which will be afflicting this line of Sagittarius and Gemini, and these eclipses will include Saturn and Pluto, and soon also in the year Ketu will join. So this will be a year for people who have Sagittarius rising. This will be a year of attention, not to undertake very important new initiatives, not to get into risks, to be responsible for their health and for the health of their beloved ones. This is important to say, and if we're very spiritual, if we maintain high moral values, if we have high vibrational level and level of consciousness, we will not suffer from the eclipse, but still it's good to know that the luck is a bit tight when there is eclipse happening on the ascendant or on a luminary. So this is important to say. The first lunar crescent is appearing of the first Nisan 2019, is appearing on their fourth house together with Mercury, who is, as I said, in a heliacal phase of disappearance. And Mercury is ruling their work and their relationships and their career. So this can be meaning completion of something in these particular areas of their life. Otherwise, the home, the house, the mother is very important. Also this year, of course, for them. They will be having, because Venus is in the second house, is quite supportive in terms of money. So they will be supported in terms of money. Venus is squaring Mars in the fifth house, so I see this as a bit too emotional. They may go through some emotional challenges, which will be very interesting. So their love life and romance may go through interesting times. Jupiter in the 12th house is a lot of, says a lot about empathy, mercy that these people may desire to do, but certainly they need also to be quite responsible for their health. So we go to the Capricorn ascendant. Capricorn ascendant also, like Cancer, also will go through a lunar, through one of the eclipses in the beginning of January. Yes, in January. And this means that until like 6 months, the first 6 months of the year, they also need to be cautious in the initiatives they will undertake, also cautious for their health, also because the ascendant ruler is in the 12th. So they can have a bit emotional down periods. And then it's good to know that this is due to the eclipses and to the placement of the ascendant. So Venus will be very supportive on the ascendant, very like a true blessing, and will make all this much blessed and easier and softer. And the aspect of Jupiter as well is very much supporting the ascendant. So basically, even though there may be some factors like eclipses and the ascendant ruler in the 12th house, they will be very much blessed from above by Jupiter and by the placement of Venus on the ascendant. The first lunar crescent here appears in the 3rd house of spirituality, powerful intuition, dream, studies, short distance travels. So all this will be taking place. Their career will be fine because of the placement of Venus and the placement of the Sun. Their finances also look fine in the year 2019. Aquarius, another one of the 4 very important signs because of formal health, the star of the spiritual guru. And this way, the sign Aquarius is very much emphasized on. The moon appears on the on the second house, which can create some lessons in general for the sign in relation to finances, some changing environment in relation to their money or to the way they make the money. Saturn is aspecting also to create some challenges related to money. But Saturn is the ruler of the ascendant and is placed very well in the 11th house, because the 11th house is the house of the good spirit. So there is a possibility for them to have financial challenges, but I'm sure they will be able to go through this and solve it. Mercury in the 2nd is also pointing at completing something in relation to money, in relation to love and studies and plans. So this is very important. And of course, in the place of that career is Jupiter, who is blessing them from above and who will be supportive factor, very supportive factor in their career. Mars is in the 3rd, in his own position, to give them desire to study or to travel or to negotiate, but Mercury is not very promising in terms of negotiations this particular year. And then Pisces. Pisces is like the star, the sign which is emphasized by the vernal equinox for our era, because the vernal equinox travels approximately 2,100 years in one zodiacal sign. So Pisces is the sign where the lunar crescent appears after the vernal after the sun enters, before the sun enters the place of the vernal equinox. So Pisces is a very important, emphasized for our era sign, emphasized for spirituality, for empathy, mercy, and all these spiritual knowledges, sensitivity, also this intrinsic, natural, philosophical, and deep psychological understanding of the others. So this is fact also, of course, for this year. Saturn in the place of their career can be a bit challenging factor, as Saturn will be squaring their moon. So this can be challenging a little bit in terms of health, in terms of the health of their emotions. So it's good that they know to try to, through maintaining high vibrational level, to try to become emotionally very stable, because the Saturnian aspect will pass, and also because Jupiter is trining the ascendant and the moon, and is a beautiful supportive factor. So Jupiter will take very good care about them, but still they will need to be not to be careless in terms of health and in terms of their emotions. Venus in the 11th is good for their finances. Mars in the 2nd will create opportunities and ambition and motivation in terms of making money, maybe new plans, and all this will be existing. And then the Sun in the 12th can be a reason, again, to be careful for their health, and can be reason also for deepening of their spirituality and having new spiritual events and esoteric intuitive events may take place also this year for them. So basically this was my overview based on the appearance of the first lunar crescent before the sun enters the point of the vernal equinox. And this is the day of the 1st of Nisan, which was considered the most important day in ancient Mesopotamia by the Sumerians. Later on, the Babylonians would make another way of analysis. They would put the lunar crescent on a different place, but this is the most ancient way of analyzing the events, and seems that it worked greatly for the ancients. It works for us now as well. If you want to have detailed analysis, this is just an overview. Detailed analysis can be done by seeing the exact degree of the rising ascendant, and by seeing all important fixed stars which are projected on the ascendant, on the horizon, and so on aspects. And there's so many factors which we cannot see in this very general, hopefully very useful prediction for you. So just to remind you that the beginning of every cycle, such as the first day of the year, the 1st of Nisan, by the beginning of every cycle, we determine how the cycle will look like. So thank you for your attention. You might look at my other analysis, which is outlining the most important celestial placements and events of the year 2019. And every month I am making monthly predictions, which include also predictions of our financial status. Thank you.